started.
Hey guys, this is Chuck from Press Check Training and Consulting. I collaborated with Joe on the Night Fighter pistol, and I'm one of his Pro Series guys. Wanted to do this video, stuck in traffic coming back from Father's Day weekend. Wanted to do this video to kind of spur some discussion within the Chamber's closed Facebook group. First off, this video is going to be unlisted, and this link is only going to be available in the Chamber's closed group. Like other closed Facebook groups, what is shared within the Chamber's group needs to stay within the Chamber's group, and anybody that violates, that is subject to getting banned or kicked out of the room or whatever. And the purpose kind of for that philosophy is that we need to be able to collaborate about the good and the bad and the ugly about our experiences with the Chamber's pistols. And Joe and Eric and Brandon and everybody else, they need to be able to get honest feedback about the performance of these handguns so that they can make them better. And this is something that I've been talking with Joe about. It's very, very easy, especially when you're talking about the sheer money that guys are investing in pistols. Nobody wants to spend X amount of $1,000 on a gun and then to have the gun have some hiccups or whatever, and then go onto social media and have people say, I told you so, blah, 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 blah. And so social media, which is not the real world, people only present the best version of themselves in Facebook and Instagram and all of that. It's this horribly toxic, narcissistic environment. We carry that over into the tools that we have chosen. You can see it with everybody falling in love with their gear on the internet. Any type of gear review, any type of whatever. My shit's the best. It's flawless. I have X amount of insert a bullshit number of rounds fired with zero malfunctions. It's a bunch of crap. It's a bunch of crap. Generally, usually. I've got a brand new Gen 5 MOS Glock with an Acro on it, and it's had 2 or 3 malfunctions in the first 300 rounds since I got it. Brand new Glock malfunctioning in the first 300 rounds. But we don't talk about that kind of stuff because there are certain brands that have been branded as duty grade, and people say, yep, it's going to go bang every time you pull the trigger. So there is perception, and then there is reality. And the perception, which was based on a lot of reality, is that the 1911 and especially the 2011 platform were not duty grade guns anymore. We're not saying that they could not be built or that the platform was inherently flawed to where they wouldn't work, but the vast preponderance of the guns being assembled in this industry were not being assembled with a level of tolerances or quality control that lent themselves to good performance. And as a longtime 1911 shooter and 2011 shooter, I wanted that platform. I want that platform to shoot well. Joe has assembled a vast range of customers in this room, and not everybody that hears this video is going to believe what I'm saying or is going to agree with my philosophy, and that's fine. Joe brought me on because he was trying to expand his brand into a larger audience, and an audience that is largely younger people that have a very radically different perspective about what a firearm should do for them in terms of duty performance. And they are, some of them, rabidly anti-1911. And it's just because so many crappy 19 and 2011s have hit the streets. And I'm saying this as a former and now returned 19-2011 guy. You know, I was part of a trial for a 2011 platform that was a complete and total failure that resulted in the government defaulting on their contract with the manufacturer and saying your guns cannot meet the minimum specifications required in our requirement. Take all of these weapon systems back. And I was issued one of those weapon systems, and my gun did not run. My gun rusted overnight if you looked at it funny. The magazines were not reliable, not having anything to do with the guns not running. Separate issues. And so, if you love 1911s, if you are a 1911 guy, you have to understand that there is an entire population of our shooting community that does not, at a fundamental level, believe that those guns work. They've never shot one that worked. They have seen them in classes, and for every one Glock they've seen have a stoppage, they've seen 10 1911 framed weapons shit the bed. I truly believe, or else I would not have gotten into a collaboration with Joe, that Joe understands, as a result of him apprenticing under the master, that Joe truly understands what it takes to make that weapon system run. So when we agreed to do the Night Fighter, I was adamant that the guns had to run, and that they can't run with caveats, because that's what duty grade is. The people that are shooting these guns for duty are sometimes not gun people. So we can't have, my gun runs if I replace followers every this often, if I replace springs, if I have it lubed, if it's not dirty, because those are just not practical considerations for these people that own these cheap, mass-produced duty firearms. So we have to find a way as a community, if we are going to get people to trust, if we are trying to lead a charge to get people to trust the platform when properly assembled and manufactured, then we have to have some certain ground rules. And so Joe and I were talking about, well, what is duty grade? How much attention do you need to give to a gun to ensure 100% performance? How far can a Chambers gun go? Not just one, not anecdotal, but like across the board. If we understand that these firearms mechanically are operating at a higher level of performance, accuracy, shootability, resistance to shooter-induced flaw, it is a scientific fact that if you break the wrist during recoil anticipation flinch, how soon the bullet leaves the muzzle determines how far off your deviation is. So a firearm in which the bullet leaves the muzzle sooner after you do something horrible like anticipate recoil before the gun goes bang will not deviate off of the X-ring as far as one that goes off later. Every millisecond that the barrel is moving off the X-ring, there is a divergent track that will be the bullet when it leaves the barrel. And so if a gun takes 30 milliseconds to go bang because you are cocking a striker after you break your wrist, that bullet is going further away from the X than one that has a single action that is extremely light and pull. That gun is physically going to go pow in your hands sooner after you make a horrible life decision to go ahead and flinch that shot. So that gun mechanically, that platform is inherently more forgiving to shoot. Can I shoot hundreds at 25 yards with a Glock, properly set up Glock? Absolutely. I've done it. But when I don't bring my skill set to the table, the results in the target shooting a striker-fired pistol are much more catastrophic than that of a 19 or a 2011. So in order to buy into shooting that more forgiving gun, I have to understand that it probably needs a little bit more attention than some of these mass-produced plastic guns that are out there. So as a community, what I was hoping to do, and this is why I talked to Joe and asked him to rethink this idea of doing a closed chambers group, is we have to have a place like a locker room where we can air our dirty laundry and we can get ground truth on what's going on with all of our pistols, best practices, maintenance schedules, parts replacements. All of these things need to be on the table in an environment where we don't think that we're going to embarrass ourselves and bring a bunch of haters in that are just going to be trash talking the product and our decision to buy it. See, I told you so. You spent too much money. That gun's trash. Whatever. And then also to kind of consolidate and collate all this data so that it's becoming less anecdotal and more like kind of streamlined and across the board. And I think it would be great to be able to tell someone that is saving up to buy a Chambers gun and they want to carry it to protect themselves and their community every day, a law enforcement officer, for example. I would love to be able to say, this is the Chambers promise. That gun, clean and lubed, will not have a stoppage in 500 rounds. It is capable of firing 500 rounds without cleaning and without relubing, and you can take that to the bank. If it can't, there's a problem. Your mags are trash, whatever. But that gun can reliably be counted on to shoot 500 rounds. And I'm not saying I want the Chambers guns to be able to shoot 500 rounds, and I'm not saying the Chambers guns can't shoot 500 rounds. I'm saying that Joe and others like myself that are advocating for the Chambers brand, we need to have some metrics so that someone can say, well, what is duty grade? Chuck's Night Fighter, they're marketing it as a duty grade pistol. What does that mean? Well, I think that means that you should be able to go shoot a full range day, and if your gun is, trashed at the end of that range day, and you get a call out because you're a SWAT guy, and you have to immediately jock up, throw HST back in that gun, drop it in your holster, and jump in the back of a Bearcat, that you should know, hey, at 400 or 500 rounds on the range that day, put some oil in it, rack it a few times, charge up those mags with HST, and you're going to be able to protect your community and get out there. That doesn't mean that you can ignore your gun. You can't do 3 500 round range sessions only re-adding oil to it and not expect that you're going to eventually that you're not going to eventually get a failure to feed or something like that. But those data points have to come from a cross variety of guns that are actually being put into a field environment. And so I think that the Chambers Facebook group is an opportunity for us to get some metrics from some actual people that are out, that are going to have high capacity magazines from various manufacturers that remain loaded, not kept unloaded in a rollout tool roll for weekend USPSA matches or whatever. And that's and some of these guns, and ones that run very well at the high levels, they have been branded as that's a gamer pistol, because gamers are not going to leave anything to chance. Gamers are going to be pulling their followers and toothbrushing out the stainless steel mag wells. Gamers are going to be checking feed lip diameters with calipers because they're leaving nothing to chance. And duty people don't have time for all of that. They ain't got no time. They don't do that with a Glock, so they ain't gonna have time to do that with a 2011. And if you carry a 2011 and you treat it like a Glock, that gun's gonna fail you. That's the perception on the street right now. And if you are in circles, you're in closed 1911 groups, whatever, and you're not hearing that, it's out there. And you're probably the one that this younger generation is calling a boomer. And I hate the fact that I'm being called a boomer. Because I think I'm one of the more progressive guys out there about trying out new equipment. And, I helped mainstream the red dot as a carry option within the shooting community, having shot one in duty, having killed people with red dot, one person with a red dot equipped pistol after I transitioned over from iron sights, having killed someone with iron sights in lighting conditions that were less than optimal, which drove me to carrying a red dot. I think I'm extremely progressive in that way. But as soon as we start talking about the 19 or 2011 platform, if you're an advocate, you might as well be talking about sticks and stones and swords to these people. And this is a large segment of the shooting community. And so we have an opportunity to kind of define what best practices for these platforms should be. Hey, this gun will carry you through a fight. This gun will perform. It will reliably function as designed, but these are kind of the outer edges of its margins. And when you start getting towards the outer edges of those margins, and then you start stacking tolerances like fouling, like weak-hand only shooting, where the frame is not getting the resistance on the pistol to allow that spring to do its job, and as your arm is recoiling back in, Glock inherently wanted to say all of their malfunction issues were female and weaker shooters limp wristing. Well, limp wristing is actually a thing, and most of us cannot resist the firearm shooting support hand only rapid fire that we can when we're shooting freestyle. So malfunctions when your gun is acting in the edges of the margins are going to manifest themselves support hand only first, because it's another tolerance that you're adding to the process. A gun that will work perfectly freestyle will start choking support hand only first. But if it's doing it support hand only now, it's gonna do it freestyle when you stack some more tolerances, when you burn that lube off, when you get some more fouling in that pistol. And these guns, out of their inherent accuracy and their hand fitting, don't have the slop in them that production pistols do. And so we as users have to be more cognizant about what is going to cause these guns to start having problems, and then documenting that so that we can inform others. Because as soon as we start getting malfunctions on the internet without context, all we are doing is handing propaganda to people that think that the platform is dead, that it has no business in modern self-defense situations or whatever. And I don't buy that. I'm not 100,000% convinced that the perfect 2011 magazine has been created yet, but I'm also not willing to give up magazine capacity. There are very, very few circumstances where I could think that carrying a single stack pistol as a potentially offensive firearm, not self-defense, not home defense. I am talking about protection of one's community. I'm talking about a SWAT officer conducting a hostage rescue. I do not believe that we can reasonably ask people to go into fights with 10+1. I think that not duty people carrying guns in full-size Safariland drop leg holsters and all that jocked up in 40 pounds of kit. Are there still plenty of SWAT men in this country that carry single stacks? Absolutely there are. But I look at the propaganda that is being put out by the progressive gun crowd, and I try to address each issue individually. Magazine capacity, I absolutely get it. You know, I got into a shooting where I was carrying a Glock pistol and I had a Dawson +5 on there. When I got done with that gunfight, I had a round in the chamber and 2 rounds in that mag. If I had had a stock Glock magazine or even a Glock magazine with a +2 factory extension, I would have run out of ammo in that gunfight. And I was already out of ammo in my rifle. So I can't stand in front of the internet and have any type of credibility and say that magazine capacity doesn't matter. It's not a viable argument. I also have carried a Glock 43. It ain't got a gazillion bullets in it. It's the right tool for the right job. And so in the context of this conversation, I'm talking about duty pistols, duty grade pistols, not $10,000 bullseye guns, not single stacks for shooting single stack, not guns for shooting competition. I'm talking about how do we reclaim the 19 and the 2011 platform's rightful place at the table as viable duty level handguns. And what is it going to take in terms of data collection from us, Chambers owners, to have a reasonable understanding of what these platforms can and cannot do when they are properly maintained or when they're ignored. So that's kind of my question to the group. That's Joe and I's charter to all of you as Chambers owners is embrace this community and give the guys that build your guns the feedback they need to continue to evolve and improve those weapon systems so that they can continue to be viable moving forward and that we understand the outer margins of their performance. So appreciate you guys taking time to listen to this. I know it sounds like it's kind of a rant. I'm proud to be a Night Fighter owner. I'm proud to have collaborated with Joe on this project, and I want to encourage other people that have the financial means to do so to consider the Chambers platform as a viable and acceptable solution to their handgun needs. So you guys have a good night. Enjoy your Father's Day. This is Chuck from Press Check Consulting. I'll talk to you later.